Sure. I'll talk it out.
Yeah, let's just have a conversation.
Track 3.
Better not be fucking Dave Matthews Band.
Okay. Those of you who don't want to be a part of this can leave now.
Derek, please listen to me.
But if you choose to stay, which it seems like you guys are choosing...
Derek, please.
You understand and agree to the following terms and conditions.
Derek!
1.
Derek, this is the virus
You
talking.
hereby waive your right
Derek, please.
to your own personal bodily integrity.
This is not you.
2.
I'm a licensed...
Per the State versus Neville Reed, my colleague and I will not be held criminally liable for any felony or misdemeanor that you may be a victim of, including, but not limited to, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, disorderly conduct, destruction of property, mayhem, and first-degree murder. And 3, terms and conditions may change or be updated whenever the fuck I want! Consider yourselves notified.
Let's rewind like a VHS. Turn back the time, feel the beat in our chest. Make sure that we never forget. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. Let's concede that we wanna believe that the past was only a dream, just a place that we never could leave. Follow what's on the way to retrieve. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. Feel the beat in our chest. Make sure that we never forget. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS.
Welcome everyone, DJ Anubis here with you on the Metal Time Radio podcast with my co-host and great friend Kevin Lambert from the Entertainment Headquarters. Thank you, sir, for joining me today.
Anytime. It's a pleasure as always.
So this time around, we got to check out 2006 Arang. It's directed by Sang Hoon An. Cast consists of So Young Chu, Lee Dong Wook, Lim Il Gula, and Kim Hae In. I don't know if I pronounced all that right, but I give it my best shot.
Plot I'm glad it was you and not me.
Plot is the salt storehouse near the sea may be haunted. A penniless ex-con dies a grisly death in a house he can ill afford. Detectives assigned to the case are Min, newly reinstated after suspension, and Lee, a new transfer from forensics. Min has nightmares, a sexual assault that haunts her. She and Lee work well together, but soon 2 more deaths occur. Each mysteriously poisoned, both friends of an ex-con. A 4th friend, a newly married doctor, is a suspect. But what has all this to do with the salt storehouse? A death 10 years ago and a missing girl. Can Min and Lee get to the bottom of it, or is the supernatural beyond a cop's reach? So, so I discovered this off of Canopy. I found a bunch of movies on there. Actually, I kind of put in my queue because sometimes they have stuff that's not even anywhere else, which is kind of strange. But um, I started watching this a little bit, and I was like, this looks like this might be pretty good for us to review. Were you able to use Canopy, or did you have to rent it, or how did you go
I,
about
I had to watch it off YouTube.
it?
I
Okay.
watched it off YouTube with subtitles. It's available on there. So I watched it. I've not long finished watching it actually, and it
Yeah,
was
I
quite a
watched it a second time earlier this morning too.
yeah. It
Um,
was it was a
what were your
in
first impressions?
for first impressions. I thought, is this gonna go along the lines of something like The Ring,
Hmm.
or and because it has a similar kind of feel and vibe to it
Yeah.
right off the bat with the very first scenes where you see them two young schoolgirls walking in the rain and they're walking past the salt house and then they see this freaky, little girl hunched over crying in the rain and then obviously you see what happens and there's like I'm assuming a ghost and there's blood coming out of her eyes. So immediately right off the bat it sets the tone to what's to come throughout the rest of the movie, which I think was a great way about going about it because this film is a very interesting film which it goes down one road and then it leads you down a different path later on, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, certainly. One thing, because I think this is a Korean film, but one thing that they like to do, and one thing I notice a lot about Korean horror and Asian horror is it's always generally like the women in black hair and how it's like sort of like creepy and all this stuff. But yeah, obviously at first it's got the vibes of The Ring or even like what was it called, One Missed Call and stuff like that. Kind of follows
The
these
Grudge.
tropes. Right, right. And so yeah, you kind of like learning early on in this film for like the first 20 or so minutes. It's kind of a short film. It's like a minute and 40 minutes, I think, but you kind of learn within the first 20 minutes, you've got the two schoolgirls and the scene that you just talked about. And then we have this detective, So Young, who is on suspension. I forget what she even was on suspension for, but
It's when there was a young, well, because obviously her backstory is that she was like obviously sexually assaulted by some
right,
strange man, and the only way she must have left a mark on his hand. He has apparently a cut or a scar
Scar, yeah.
just next to his finger here under his thumb, under that
Oh, I know what
hand.
it was. Yeah, because
And there was a woman who was at the police station crying, and apparently she was drunken on the floor, and this man apparently bought her a hotel room for the night when he found her drunk unconscious on the floor, and apparently nothing has happened, and he
yeah,
was just saying he was being a nice citizen, but the girls obviously went to the police to see something further happened than just being a nice citizen, nice man rescuing her. She's kind of implying that he's sexually assaulted her, which
yeah.
obviously, because of her past, sent her kind of over the edge and she attacks him.
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah,
somebody who.
yeah. In the police station. Yep, that's right.
Hmm.
Because whatever happened to her kind of like got triggered when she saw this, and so that she like lashed out at this guy and kicked his
Hmm.
ass and stuff. So yeah, good memory there. So she's on suspension. She comes back. They're at a death scene where this guy who is at his desk after coming in from the rain shortly after the two girl thing, and he's sitting at his computer and he gets an email. So it's not one missed call; it's one missed email. So he checks out the email. It shows like this little bit of footage of this salt house in this field, and he recognizes it immediately. Um, and then, of course, he starts hearing things. So then something in the house is coming around the corner of his room, and they shift to like the point of view of a ghost, I guess, where it's kind of like bluish gray or whatever. And then the next thing you know, he sees whatever it is and is screaming in, black screen. Then we see that, like, when the cops get there, it's like he's been incinerated. The house was on fire or something, but it showed signs that he'd been poisoned or choked or something. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Apparently, he had suffocated.
Yeah.
He had suffocated, but there was no like wounds or anything, or any indication of how he was suffocated. And I think it's later on when they did an autopsy on him and the other person, they said that he suffocated from inside because of some gas that's released within the
yeah,
body.
that's right.
Which is bizarre because they didn't know how it was happening. Which
Yeah,
adds to the
so
mystery.
right. So then you've got she shows up and they're everyone's there, forensics, taking pictures, and she sees this young guy taking pictures, Hung Ki, and I guess her boss is like there, and he's like, yeah, he's the new guy from forensics. He's been here a few weeks, and he's going to be your partner now. She's kind of like, oh, okay, because she was kind of saying how klutzy he was and everything. He was getting in the way. Um, so they've got a new team now between her and Hyun Ki, and so now they're going to be investigating stuff. And he seems kind of a nice dude. Gets along well with her. They seem to do well together. She's been also plagued with nightmares, especially when it starts coming to the young woman who's, I guess her name is Min Young. She's the actual ghost that we're dealing with. And so Young's like been having these nightmares, wakes up at a certain time every morning. And then, of course, we start having more murders. So then we get this scene where the one guy we saw who was burned, he's in this like wedding video that's being taken, and I can't remember which guy he was, and you're probably have to remember if you're better at it than me, because there's four of them that were good
This fall.
buddies. Yeah, and
Well, the first body that they see who's been burnt, can't remember. I don't actually think you see his death.
right, but is he
because
is he the one taking the video though, or is he another one of the guys?
No, there's four of them. One of them gets killed off screen. Who's the one where it first burnt, and they
Yeah.
do that all, and that's when she first meets a new partner. Then the second person, there's like three others, and the three others, one of them is the backstory of him who got killed off screen is apparently he had a bit of breakdown and had murdered somebody, and they were trying to protect him.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he had a fallout with his mother, and when his mother passed away, he had great guilt over not being around when his mother passed away. So that's the guy off screen.
Okay.
So then you have the other three who the four of them hung out when they were younger, and the three, one's getting married. He's the wealthy doctor.
Yeah.
The other one who's just one of the best man at his wedding. The other one is actually videotaping the wedding. And as he's videotaping the wedding, he starts to see images through the camera of like a little girl in the background and the bride and stuff. And then suddenly the screen of the camera goes black, and then suddenly you see this kind of very red demonic eye staring right at him, and then he falls to the floor.
Yeah, that's a very much of that particular scene is very much in the Grudge, very Grudge type scene there with that one.
Yes.
Again, it's something that Asian horror likes to do with the long black hair.
Yeah.
She's showing up in the wedding photo, and he's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when he goes back after the wedding's totally spooked, and he's looking at the camera footage.
Yeah.
And he cannot really see anything. And then suddenly his email goes off, and it clicks up, you have a new email. And when he, like you said before, he clicks on it and it's in images of the salt house. You immediately recognize it and realizes it's all linked to that. And then all of a sudden, just as he's trying to figure it out or get spooked by it, he then sees, I think, he has noises at the window. He opens the blind, and the demonic, like, young girl is standing looking at him through the window. the next scene after that, he's basically in shock and in terror, lying back in his chair. You don't actually see him get killed, but you can see the shadow and the image of this entity coming towards him. And he's then the second one to die.
Yeah.
And then after that, when they're doing the autopsy, they discover via the autopsy that his death was similar to the one who was burnt in the fire. And this was suffocated, but they were suffocated inside through some unknown gas, and they're trying to figure out how this is entering the body and what's causing it to happen.
Yeah, so they start to figure out that the cigarettes they're smoking are laced with some sort of poison that's initiating this gas and everything in their bodies. But they're also realizing that on their computers they've got this email that keeps popping up. So Young is like looking at him. So they're starting to kind of put together some pieces that, you know, these guys are tied to whatever happened at this location. And eventually, again, more of the guys in this group start passing away, dying of the same causes.
Well, the next one after that is the best man. So the
Yeah,
one who did the videoing of the wedding, he dies, and then after it's the best man. He's literally going about his business, and he's in the shower.
mhm,
And this was one of my favourite scenes in the shower where he starts seeing the demonic entity, and there's just nothing but black hair hanging over the shower.
yeah,
And then he just sees the image of the black entity, the entity staring at him through the shower curtain, and the next thing you know, he's in fear. It's like they suddenly go into some sort of shock and fearful trance,
yep,
and the collapse on the. He's just lying back in the shower, and he's killed. So
yeah. That's our apparition there. The blood in the eyes and stuff like that, which doesn't really get. I don't think we ever see like
mm,
how that becomes. I think that's
yeah.
just an effect of the ghost
Well,
itself.
there's two apparitions if you think about it. There's
The
that
kid,
one,
yeah,
and then
yep,
there's but it all plays a part later on
yeah,
when it's all revealed. And then the third murder, when they're trying to figure out, as all this is going on, the female detective and a new porter are starting to bond,
yep.
and
That's
as
in
you
there.
yeah, and as you can see, he's very young compared to her. Like he's in his
Yeah,
early 20s. She's got to be in her mid 30s, maybe heading into her 40s, and she's got her motivations why she became a police officer. She wants to capture the person who sexually assaulted her.
yep,
She asked him what he wanted to become a police officer for, and he said, "Because I fell in love."
yeah.
Something of them effects.
And it should be noted that the events with these guys that are dying and the salt houses, there's like this 10-year gap. So
Yes.
just that's the time period we're dealing with here. It's not anything recent, it's just like about 10 years. And of course, there's suspicion on the fourth guy that he might be the doctor, that he might be pulling these strings trying to kill these guys or whatever, because that's kind of like, you know, they don't really have any real answers. So they're just going, okay, well, this guy used to hang with these, and you know, maybe he's been harassing them and sending emails and stuff. So maybe he's the one killing them.
Mm. Yeah, well, it's slowly revealed, though, I think, that the fourth one who was killed off screen, who was burnt,
Yep,
he was blackmailing the other three
yep,
for some reason. And that's where they just assume, oh, these people are getting killed because it's all some sort of blackmail plot. But there's
yep.
a lot more behind it that's revealed later on. And the main thing that is the biggest mystery is how's it tied to the salt huts, and what's these entities, and how's it all tied together.
And basically, what it comes down to is when these guys were younger, um, they were a rowdy bunch, and there was a girl named Min Young back then. I think they were all in high school, and we also find out that Hyun Ki knew who she was and knew these guys. So our partner to So Young is also someone who knows Min Young and the rest of them. So we start to unravel some of the mystery that's surrounding what's going on with the ghost and everything else. And it turns out that Min Young was friends with Hyung Ki, and he was a photographer, but he also had this big crush on her. And eventually, one day, I think it was a graduation night party or something, he sees her making out with her boyfriend or lover or whatever it is, and he's hurt. Like he gets hurt by it, just angry or whatever, because he had this crush on her. But he is friends or sort of knows the four boys that we are seeing as men passing away, and they've come up with this plan that they're gonna like rape her in the salt house, and Key is gonna film it. And for whatever crazy ass reason he decides he's gonna do this. I mean, he must
Yeah,
have
well, he
really
gets
been.
paid. He gets paid because you see a flashback. Well, the plot all comes together where the female detective is kind of figuring stuff out,
Yeah,
and the third person, the doctor, also meets his demise. So what happens with the third doctor is this is one of the most action-packed sequences in it. He starts having, this is where you see most of the action with the ghost. There's loads of hallucinations. He sees his wife in the bed. He wakes up after he's seen the ghost. He turns to the wife. The wife is like, "Oh, what's wrong? I'll get you a glass of water." She comes back. He drinks the water. He thinks he sees the ghost again. Then the wife, his new wife that he's just got married, laughs at him. When she looks at her eyes go blood red like the ghost.
yeah,
He then starts running around the house trying to fight off the entity, and then the detective, in the meantime, is on her way to his house because she's kind of figured out this blackmailing plot
yeah,
and how it's all tied together to, he probably, they think he's killed the other two or the other three. So they're on their way to his house to arrest him. And as they walk in, after he's had all these horrendous hallucinations and seeing this ghost, when they turn the light on, his wife is actually dead in a pool of blood on the floor.
yep. So
And this
basically, he was seeing a hallucination, but it was really his wife probably trying to calm him down, and he ends up killing her, thinking that she's the ghost.
And yeah, so they think they've wrapped up the case. He's murdered his wife, he's murdered his friends. He's now arrested. But then he himself, during the interrogation, starts seeing the images again. And the next thing you know, he's strangling himself and he kills himself via the hallucinations.
Yep.
And some of these sequences, though, are brilliant because one thing I always loved is you knew shit was going to go down when you heard the lullaby music.
Mm-hmm.
You heard this creepy lullaby music when the email picture would come on the screen, and that's when you knew something creepy was going to happen. And then you would also see blood coming through curtains, coming, underneath the feet on the floor, coming even through the legs of the little girl standing on the table in the there's blood pouring from her body going across this table. So he now is dead, and now they just assumed he's committed suicide, and they've solved the case. But that's not quite it yet, because as going back to what you were saying, the young new, I guess, apprentice police officer has disappeared, and the female police officer is now kind of sus that something's not quite right with him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So she starts figuring out that he was tied to this case where uh, Min Young was raped in a salt house, and he was filming it. And now she has to kind of chase him down. I forget where he went. You might have to fill me in here.
he
Because
went
he,
because he had loads of photos of her. And I
Yeah,
think he originally goes back to the place where he was taking photos of her on the bridge when he was young.
that's right. Yeah,
And he's like kind of asking her for forgiveness or something.
yeah,
Because the scenes where you see her get raped in the salt house, you see in the flashback where he is broken-hearted, and they just ask him, "Oh, can you video this thing we're doing? We'll pay you." And then he goes in, and when he hides around the corner, and he sees her on the floor, and the four of them over the top of her.
yeah,
And at first, he's in shock, and he starts crying, and he just he's in total shock of what's going on. But then he starts seeing the images of in his head of her kissing a boyfriend or a lover, and he suddenly thinks, you deserve this kind of thing in his head, and he has like an evil little smirk across his face. And
yeah,
I always remember the one thing when you see him holding the camera and you've got where the light is, and you see the light go red, that he's starting to record it. And
yeah,
then it's her actual lover boyfriend that comes in and breaks it all up.
yeah.
He gets killed,
Right.
and he, the young police officer who's young at the time, you see him when it all kicks off with the four of them and the boyfriend. He cowardly crawls across the floor and escapes. And then you go back to the image of him on the bridge, of him asking forgiveness and crying, and him and then he then goes off, and we'll find out what happens next.
Yeah. So then we also find out that night after what happens, these four guys, clearly one of them has connections to the police, and the police head honcho at the time is going to take care of this. Like he's going to kind of sweep it on the rug. So he convinces Min Young to come back to the salt house after finding out that she's pregnant. And she thinks maybe they're going there just to, take notes and get a report of what happened and everything. But what the officer does is locks her in the salt house and then dumps the salt on top of her to kill her, just to kind of make it go away. He doesn't want like, any report or anything to come out of this. Assuming because maybe the guy that was a doctor had a lot of money behind it and everything else, so there's a lot of corruption
Yeah, it was
and
the
whatnot.
doc. It was the guy who was the doctor
Yeah,
who they originally thought was involved with killing the other three and was the head blackmailer. It was he had a wealthy family,
yeah,
so he had connections. So I think he's obviously his family or something must have knew what's happened and paid the police officer off, and
exactly.
he goes in and does what he's asked to do to cover it up, so the one who becomes a doctor basically has a squeaky clean image.
Yep. So now we have Hyun Ki, who is the young man that you said that squibbed away and got out. So he's already, he knows that the other four are gone. Like he knows that's been done. Now he wants to get the cop, the corrupt cop, to come back to the salt house and uncover her from the salt. Because a lot of people up to this point, through the myth and everything else surrounding Min Young, think that she just took off and went crazy after this. They didn't even know she was dead. They just thought she took off and left. But he knew better. So he gets this cop there, shoots him in the leg, and he's like, "Look, you're gonna dig her up." And cops trying not to, but we know now also that the lead cop, So Young, knows where he's at, and she's like tracked him down. So now she's got Hyun Ki at gunpoint, telling him to put the gun down. And of course, he goes through this whole spiel, like you pointed out, where he was very much in love with her. There's more scenes on the bridge, where he's trying to get forgiveness for what he did. And he wants So Young to shoot him and kill him. Like he's ready. He's pretty much already written it off. Like, I want to die. That's how he sees it. Um, I never thought about it now until now, but do you think when it came to the guys dying that the cigarettes were laced by the ghost itself, or do you think that Young Ki was doing this himself?
Well, that's the big twist, I believe, in the whole thing, is that this is meant to be a haunting film. It's meant to
Right.
be a ghost story. And you do see the apparitions, but obviously, the young new recruit cop, he's been lacing these cigarettes with this chemical to make them hallucinate.
Okay, so it was
And
him. I just
so,
didn't really put it together till now.
so it's basically, well, there's the thing. It still makes you think at the end, because what happens is the whole plot's revealed that because of him doing what he did, videoing the rape, and him not doing anything about it, he basically made her cost her life, because
Yeah,
he probably didn't come forward to the police. He basically
yeah,
was a coward. He
yeah,
basically, and this is his way of kind of getting forgiveness from her by, setting this plot up of having the chemicals put into the cigarettes, going to each of the different four people who raped her, have them basically smoke a cigarette, have these hallucinations, and the first two murders you just see the apparition.
yeah,
But the third murder, when you see the doctor who was the ringleader, you actually see him with the hands round his own throat. He's actually strangling himself.
right,
So he's not there is no aberration, there is no ghost. It's all an
correct.
hallucination. And when the first, and you will have to go back to the start of the film when the first body is found, the burnt victim. When the autopsy happened, the gentleman, the autopsy, if you remember this, I forgot to mention this, he said he had no idea how these murders were happening, because he
Hmm.
couldn't explain why this gas was forming in the stomach. It's then later on, before she goes and meets up, and this is where she put two and two together. After the doctor had died and he had disappeared, and he went to the bridge, and you just see the flashback of the rape. The female officer gets a phone call as she's trying to figure stuff out, because she realizes there's something not right with her partner.
Hmm.
She got that phone call from the autopsy, from the gentleman that performed the autopsy, and he went, "I've made a huge mistake." He goes, "I'm going to be in the firing line for this, but I need to pass this information on to you." And he mentions how the chemical was formed via inhalement, via cigarettes, and that the cigarettes had been tampered with.
Yeah,
He'd finally figured out what was causing the gas inside the stomach, that which then caused a reaction to make people hallucinate, self-harm themselves, and it also caused them to have heart attacks.
yeah.
So it was all, what you're seeing isn't actually happening, but it's all via this chemical reaction.
Yeah, so now we're in the salt house, and the lead officer, she's got Hyun Ki by gunpoint, and he's got a gun. He doesn't fire on it. Like he clearly has only one motive, and that is to get the people responsible for the death of Min Young. And so she's it's clear she's not going to kill him. She's already telling him, like, I'm going to arrest you. You're going to go to jail, and you're going to live with this. And he, of course, is like, nope, that's not a good option for me. I won't be able to handle it. So, and next thing you know, he falls after shooting himself, which they don't show, which is a little weird. But
You hear
uh,
the gun go off, I think, but and then you just see him topple over.
right. So, like, and they kind of like it's interesting about a film like this is that all the kill scenes were kind of done off screen. They didn't bother going into any gory details or anything, which you didn't really need it necessarily, but at first when he drops, I'm thinking, did she shoot him or did someone else? Like I thought maybe the cop behind him did. Like I couldn't figure out initially what happened until it just kind of clicked in that, oh, he just killed himself and then he fell. And then shortly after, we start seeing the salt because there's like some rain stuff coming through, and the salt just starts peeling away, revealing Min Young's body that's been hidden under the salt for all these years. And because it's been in salt, it's been kind of somewhat preserved. It's not like pretty, but it's not decayed either. But we do have like a very revealing moment in that scene. So if you would like, sir, you can give us the breakdown of that.
Yes, so like I mentioned earlier, there's two apparitions you see. One of them is of Ming, what's it? Ming, what's the name of the girl?
Ah, Min Young, yeah.
Yeah, Ming Yong. Yeah. So clearly, the more demonic apparition with the red eyes full of blood, that is Ming Yong. But you were always seeing an image of a little girl prior to her showing up. So you would always see like a flash of the little girl hiding somewhere, like behind or in front. That would be the first thing the victims would see. The second image would be of Ming Young in like a demonic form with the red eyes and the blood. And the reason you are seeing two aberrations is because when the salt peels back and you see the blood, so you see the body of Ming Young, you then see beneath her, unfortunately, the image of a dead child, a dead baby that she's given birth to. And that is what the other apparition was. It was the
Mhm.
fact that she had given birth to a child after she died, because apparently when they do the autopsy scene, which is quite upsetting, quite disturbing,
Yeah,
they do like this thing where it says when a person passes away while pregnant, because of the gases and that in the body that'll push out the baby. And
yeah,
I think that the whole another reason why the young detective was using the cigarettes and using the gas within inside the bodies to
yeah.
cause them like death from inside.
Hmm.
So it was very poetic in a way, justice in a way. Um, but then it gets even stranger because, as you've mentioned, she was having dreams and hallucinations of her own of um, after she was sexually assaulted, the female officer. She was having images of this gentleman and images of other things, and she was even having images of Ming Young herself.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're seeing that. There's this beautiful scene at the end where she's having like a dream and all the case is over, and she's in the salt house and they're both standing in white dresses,
Yeah,
and it's a dream and they're both smiling and it's her and Ming Young. So I found that very strange, but then it leads to something else.
yeah,
Can you remember what it leads to?
yeah. So this is probably a case of like where something starts out more of like where it's man-made. So we talk about the young detective guy who is killing these other guys using cigarettes and lacing them and using their guilt about what they did in the past as their hallucinations came to real for them. So the movie plays with you like in that way. It tells you like, well, maybe she doesn't really exist. Maybe it's just in their head, but because of the toxins and everything else, they're seeing this. And as you said, at one point he strangled himself. So they're doing harm to themselves in some way. But as time goes on, especially with ghost stories, sometimes those myths start taking a form of their own. So, So Young, who is found a way to track down the very dude that like raped her and sexually assaulted her way back when. He's now married, successful businessman. We get this shot of him in a hotel. He's on a trip, goes up to his hotel room. He's on his computer and steps away for a moment, and then of course he gets the email pops up, and of course the video starts playing with the salt house in the field,
In the
and
lullaby.
yep, and
That's
so
when no shit's gonna go down once you hear the creepy lullaby. You like, but then this is why it's a mystery, because it kind of ends with you know what he's gonna get murdered.
yep,
But obviously, this is after. I would imagine this is the time frame throughout the film. Like you say, starts like in current time back then, because it was filming. I think it was filmed in 2006.
mm-hmm.
Believe it was, or 2010 maybe.
2006, yep,
2006. So this was in real time back then. So this was based in 2006. But then you have the flashbacks 10 years prior with Ming Young and
Mm-hmm.
her rape and all that. Then it comes back to present time in 2006, and then obviously I don't really think you got a time frame of when the female police officer was sexually assaulted, but that's why she trained to become a cop.
Right.
So I would imagine this is probably when she finds her assaultant. I think it would have been a year or two after the events with Ming Young, because I found it weird how he's a successful businessman. That case has been solved.
Mm-hmm.
She's resting peacefully. But now this is happening again, but with her ceiling. But then you don't know who's behind it, or
Yeah, because
is
there
it
is a
her?
there
Is
is
it
a
her?
scene prior to
Mm-hmm.
the last scene where uh, So Young wakes up. It's daylight. She's not having. This is after the dream with them all in white, and it's all happy, and they're smiling. She gets up to her email or to her laptop, and she's playing on it, and she's clearly typing something, and then she gets a phone call. Now, I don't recall. Like I keep saying to myself, maybe the guy on the other line, which is a cop, I think they were asking her about the actual video file. I think, um, but some of it tells me that maybe Min Young kind of did this on her own as like a way to gift So Young her revenge that she always wanted. Um,
Well,
but
yeah.
I think it is unclear about exactly.
Who was behind it? Is it
Yeah,
is it the
did So Young
spirit?
send the email? Did she find the guy and just say, "I'm going to send this email to him so that she can take care of business," or did Min Young just do it out of respect for her because they both had been
And
through some?
thanking her for like getting her at peace and solving her death and her crime. So yeah, it's an interesting one, this, because I looked at it as the beginning. Like I said, it gives you a total curveball. How it 100% starts off as like The Grudge or The Ring straight off the bat. It's like haunted, and
Yep.
throughout it you believe it's that way. But then there's even scenes where she goes to go to the salt mine. She's looking for its location. Sorry, the salt hut, and she sees the little schoolgirls, and they act all scared, and they're like, "You don't want to go there. It's haunted." So there's even hints that it is all down to a spirit or an entity, some ghostly presence. And then you got the curveball of it wasn't nothing to do with that. It was all down to the young rookie cop who was avenging the death of Ming Young because he was a coward in the past, and this was his way of paying her back by killing her rapists and to get her body dug up to bury her peacefully is a way of apologizing to her.
Yeah.
But then it throws you this curveball at the end of it. Was it really? Was this all an actual hallucination via the drugs he was putting in the body, or were the aberrations actually real? So it
Right.
leaves it with a huge question mark. But in it, that leaves you up to the audience, interpretation.
Interpretation. Yeah.
So that's what I really enjoyed about this.
So, if you had to rate it out of 10, what would you give this film?
I'm gonna rate it quite high. I think it deserves 8 out of 10 because I love the story, and I loved how it messed with your mind. It made you have to really think and take in everything and pay attention to what was going around. I enjoyed how I love even though it's from 2006. I love the effects with the entities, like the blood coming through the curtains, all,
Mm-hmm.
and the music, the eerie lullaby, the emails. That very much was like The Ring, where you had the videotape, and if you seen The Ring on the videotape, you were dead in so many days. This was similar. They took a lot of inspiration, I think, from other,
Mm-hmm.
Korean horror properties. But it was a well crafted mystery. I would say psychological horror mystery, really.
Agreed. I give it an 8 out of 10. I did really enjoy this. It was a surprise. I did not expect when I kind of pulled it up. Sometimes I just pull stuff up randomly just to see how it is. And as I said, I started watching this. So, you know what? So far, I'm about into this. So, we're going to do this as a review. Glad we did. So 8 out of 10 for sure. I wish a lot of the scares were more, but I think part of that is because I'm so used to seeing stuff like The Ring and The Grudge and One Missed Call and stuff. So I'm kind of been, you could say, desensitized a little bit with that. But if you want like a really clever story, and as you said, this whole thing still by the end of it, you still don't know exactly what is real, what's not. We don't know if So Young was actually in the hotel with that guy. She could have just sent the email and been the one that killed him. We have no idea like how everything plays out. So everything is still just up for interpretation of how you're seeing it and what's going on. But it's a clever story. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Yes, I 100% agree. It was well crafted, well acted, and like you say, if it had your attention from beginning to end, and if a film can do that, then they've done the job.
Yep. Well, so as far as coming up on Metal Tavern, I'm probably going to try to get to at least my ranking the top 10 Blumhouse films of all time.
They all get a 0 from me.
It's going to be, well, you'd be surprised because I really went looking and I said, I knew that there were some films that I thought were pretty decent. And so I did find some, but I found some that will surprise people that they probably didn't even know Blumhouse was involved in.
Mm.
So that's something that people are going to find very interesting. Now, I can say without a doubt, a majority of Blumhouse stuff sucks. I just, in my opinion, I do
I
not
think the
like it.
earlier stuff is the best stuff before they got to a certain level.
Right.
I think once, for me, it's very much like Disney now. It's like the Disney of Hollywood. They're taking over the horror scene. I
Oh,
prefer
they
like
love doing remakes. Like they just can't
it's
help
like
themselves. They're
it's
trying
like
every time they
yeah.
can.
That's how I look at Blumhouse. They're like the horror company that's turned into Disney, where they started off small. They had some interest. They had some really good success, and then once they got to a certain level of success, everything that bum out, like you say, is now a mediocre remake or a disappointing remake, or it's not really original idea. They're even, I think, working on the new Spawn film, which I'm dreading.
Oh my God. Ugh.
They are involved in the new Spawn movie, which has been announced and is going through Blumhouse now, which I am absolutely dreading
I mean,
because
I
I
love the
love.
fact that they're interested in horror, but man, you guys are just
Mm-hmm,
dropping the ball. Like it's just, but you'll be interested in the top 10
mm,
because I think I do have some decent films, and not all of them are horror. So
yeah, I
I'll
think
be going
I
through it.
think A24 is good with horror. I
Yeah,
think they do some pretty decent horror stuff. Like I watched one that was just balls to the walls crazy called Men. I don't know if you haven't seen that. I recommend that. It's a bit crazy.
it's called Men.
Men, yeah. But it's
Okay,
off by Studio 24. It's a bit off the wall.
okay, I'll check that out. Next week or Friday, I'm gonna try to do my one-on-one with Sentry. We're gonna be reviewing Dog Soldiers.
Yeah,
Next week, I do want to get another When I Raid, a Raid Alone out. I'm gonna talk a little bit more Diablo 4 this time, just season 2. And then next Friday, Neko and I will be interviewing Thrash Pondo Ponds and get to know the guy behind the channel there. So, what do you have coming up? What can people expect from you?
well, at the minute, I have got coming later on today. I have my second personal blog coming out. It was a tour of this seaside town, Whitby, which is the home of Bram Stoker as Dracula, where he was given the inspiration to write that book. As we know, Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola is one of my favourite vampire movies. We recently did a live review on that, which you can check out on my channel.
Yeah, it was very
So the
good. I was watching some of it at the airport. It was good.
Oh, cool. So I've got that on the channel. So the Whitby and the Dracula experience. There is a Dracula actual walk-in museum in Whitby, which has the actual cloak that Christopher Lee wore in his Dracula films, which was cool to see. I learned a bit more. There's some horror, there's some ghost stories I listened to. My two very talented Edwardian actors, so that's all involved in that. Later on, I'm also bringing out a review for Dark Harvest, which is on Amazon Prime. So I have that review coming. And I'm working on, you and me, my friend, working on the second Kaiju Connections episode, where we will be reviewing the Kaiju Classic and the British Kaiju Classic Gorgo.
Yeah. Can't wait for that. Good deal. Thank you again, sir, for joining me today. Been much appreciated, and I always love having you on. And for the rest of you, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you've seen this movie, what are your thoughts? What do you think of it? You think we're spot on, or you have your own theories? Let us know in the comment section. And Kevin, hold on. And then the rest of you, we will see you next time here on the Cinematic Synergy.
Just for you.